The ancient betrayal. The quantum drive hummed with a sound never before heard by human ears. Dr. Elena Santos stood before the massive window of lunar control, watching as humanity's first faster-than-light ship, the Prometheus, prepared for its historic test flight. 20 years of work, 300 billion credits, and the combined efforts of Earth's greatest minds had led to this moment. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Final diagnostics are green, announced Captain David Chen through the comm, beginning quantum field generation in 3 minutes. Elena studied the holographic readouts floating before her. The quantum matrices were perfectly aligned, the field generators were operating at optimal efficiency, and yet there was a pattern in the background radiation that shouldn't be there. Something subtle, almost invisible. "Wait," she called out, fingers dancing across the interface. "There's an anomalous reading in there." A burst of light flooded the observation window. Where the Prometheus had been, a sphere of swirling energy expanded outward, its surface rippling with colors that human eyes had never evolved to process. The ship vanished, but not in the way their calculations had predicted. "Emergency protocols," shouted Mission Director Karim Rahman. "Track that quantum signature." But Elena already knew. The Prometheus wasn't just gone, it had been destroyed. And it hadn't been an accident. In the chaos that followed, only Elena noticed the brief flash of a cloaked ship departing the solar system. 3 days later, they came openly. The Galactic Council's ships appeared in high Earth orbit without warning. Massive vessels that dwarfed humanity's largest space stations, their designs an elegant fusion of technology and art that made human spacecraft look like crude approximations of true spacefaring capability. The Council's message was diplomatic but firm: Earth was to be quarantined. The official reason? Protection of developing species from premature exposure to galactic society. Elena watched the broadcast from her underground lab, where she hadn't slept for 72 hours. Scattered across her workstation were fragments of data she'd managed to salvage from the Prometheus disaster. In them, she saw the truth that no one else had yet pieced together. The quantum drive had worked. It had worked perfectly. Someone had destroyed it precisely because it had worked. "They're afraid of us," she whispered to the empty lab. But why? She found her answer buried in the final sensor logs. The Prometheus's quantum drive hadn't just been creating a way to move through space, it had been manipulating reality in a way that the Council's own FTL technology couldn't match. Humanity had stumbled onto something fundamental about the universe, something that threatened the Council's technological supremacy. Elena took her findings to the Emergency Response Committee, but it was too late. The quarantine was already in place, a barrier of exotic particles that no human technology could penetrate. The committee, faced with the overwhelming might of the Council's ships, had already agreed to the terms. "We have to tell everyone," she argued before the committee. "They sabotaged us. They're not protecting us, they're containing us." Dr. Santos, the committee chair, replied quietly, "Even if what you say is true, what would you have us do? Fight them? We'd be obliterated." But Elena had seen something in the quantum data that gave her hope. The barrier they'd erected around Earth. It used principles similar to their FTL technology, principles that humanity's quantum drive had already proven could be surpassed. In her final act before the Council's observation posts took up permanent position around Earth, Elena distributed her findings through a hidden quantum network she'd built. The data went to secret servers, to hidden facilities, to researchers who understood what it meant. A message to the future. "They think they're containing us," she recorded in her final log. "But they've just given humanity something it's never had before, a unified purpose. Time to evolve. Time to prepare. And when we're ready, we'll show them exactly why they were right to fear us." As the quarantine barrier solidified around Earth, cutting humanity off from the stars, Elena looked up at the night sky and smiled. The Council thought they were locking humanity in a cage. They didn't realize they were locking themselves in with their greatest nightmare. In the centuries that followed, her message would become the foundation of humanity's greatest secret, Project Ascension. While the Council watched Earth's surface for signs of conventional technological advancement, humanity went in a direction they couldn't predict. They went inward. And in the darkness of their enforced isolation, they began to change. The Silent Evolution. 500,000 years was a long time to hold a grudge. Deep beneath the Antarctic ice, in a facility that didn't officially exist, Dr. Marcus Zhang stood before the quantum consciousness interface, humanity's greatest achievement and best-kept secret. The machine didn't look impressive, a crystalline lattice suspended in a field of shifting light, but it represented the culmination of 500,000 years of hidden progress. Neural interface stable, announced Dr. Sarah Patel, her own consciousness already partially merged with the facility's AI. Her physical eyes remained closed, but in quantum space, she saw everything. Ready for final integration test. The Council's watchers still orbited above, their ancient ships maintained by automated systems. They monitored Earth for radio signals, watched for signs of space flight, and tracked what they thought was important. They never realized that humanity had stopped caring about conventional technology around the same time they stopped caring about conventional evolution. Marcus stepped into the interface chamber. Initiating full merge. The crystalline lattice hummed to life, its light patterns synchronizing with his brainwaves. This wasn't mere human-AI interaction, it was something the Council had never imagined possible, the complete integration of organic consciousness with quantum computing. In an instant, Marcus's awareness expanded beyond his physical form. He joined the vast neural network that now connected all of humanity, his consciousness merging with billions of others in the quantum substrate that ran through Earth's crust. Every human now existed simultaneously as flesh and energy, their minds free to roam through a universe the Council couldn't even perceive. Through quantum space, he observed the Council's barrier. What had once seemed like an impenetrable wall now looked like a crude lattice with countless gaps that existed in dimensions the Council's technology couldn't access. Integration complete, Sarah's voice echoed through both physical and quantum space. All parameters nominal. Together, they reviewed humanity's progress. The physical changes were subtle, slightly larger cranial capacity, enhanced neural density, but the real evolution had happened at the quantum level. Every human child was now born with the ability to perceive and manipulate quantum states naturally. What had started as Elena Santos's desperate message had become the foundation of a new human species. The Council's latest scan is complete, reported Dr. James Chen, his consciousness joining theirs from a facility beneath the Pacific. They still think we're at a pre-industrial technology level. The deception had been necessary. While the Council watched for smokestacks and satellites, humanity had developed technology that didn't rely on electronics or conventional physics. They built quantum computers that existed in probability states, developed consciousness-based transportation that didn't need ships, and created an entire civilization that operated largely in dimensions the Council couldn't detect. "Show me the latest data from the barrier analysis," Marcus requested. The quantum space around them shifted, displaying the complex mathematical patterns that defined the Council's quarantine field. What had once seemed like impossibly advanced technology now looked primitive, like a stone wall trying to contain a gas. "Their barrier technology hasn't changed in 500,000 years, Sarah observed. They stopped innovating. Stopped evolving. Fear does that, Marcus replied. They were so afraid of change that they became static. We should thank them, in a way. Their betrayal forced us to evolve beyond anything they could imagine." The irony wasn't lost on any of them. By trying to prevent humanity from developing faster-than-light travel, the Council had pushed humans to develop something far more profound, faster-than-light consciousness. Through the quantum network, Marcus felt the excitement of billions of minds. Humanity had been patient, methodically preparing for this moment for longer than most species had existed. The Council thought they were containing a primitive species. They had no idea they were sitting on top of a civilization that had transcended physical limitations. Final preparations are complete, James announced. All quantum nodes are synchronized. The network is ready. Marcus allowed himself a moment of reflection. Elena Santos had been right all those centuries ago. The Council had given humanity exactly what it needed, time and motivation. Now, after 500,000 years of silent evolution, it was time to show the galaxy exactly what humanity had become. Begin the awakening sequence, he commanded. It's time to step out of the shadows. Across the planet, in hidden facilities and secret chambers, humanity's quantum technology hummed to life. The Council's barrier was about to face something it was never designed to contain, a species that had evolved beyond the need for conventional spaceflight. The age of secrets was ending. The age of reckoning was about to begin. In quantum space, billions of human minds joined together in anticipation. They had learned, grown, and evolved in ways the Council could never have predicted. Now they would show the galaxy that attempting to contain humanity had been the greatest mistake in galactic history. The awakening had begun. Breaking the chains. First observer Zalthek of the Galactic Council quarantine fleet had monitored Earth for 3 centuries, a boring but prestigious assignment. Nothing ever changed. The primitive species below still burned hydrocarbons, fought petty wars, and showed no signs of achieving space flight. Perfect. Until the day everything changed. Observer, his ship's AI chimed, detecting unusual energy patterns across the planet's surface. Zalthek's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. Pattern match? None, observer. The energy signature is unknown. Impossible. The Council's database contained every known form of energy manipulation in the galaxy. Before he could investigate further, the quarantine barrier, technology that had functioned flawlessly for 500,000 years, simply winked out of existence. Then he saw them. They didn't emerge from the planet's surface in ships. They didn't need to. Human forms simply appeared in space, surrounded by shells of luminescent energy that defied conventional physics. Billions of them, manifesting simultaneously across the entire solar system. Impossible, Zalthek whispered. A voice echoed through his ship's systems, speaking perfect Council standard, no, first observer. Not impossible. Inevitable. The speaker materialized on his bridge, a human female, but unlike any his scanners had ever detected on the planet below. Her physical form seemed to shift between states of matter, quantum patterns flowing through her like blood through veins. I am Dr. Sarah Patel, representing the United Human Consciousness. We've decided it's time for a long overdue conversation. Zalthek reached for his emergency beacon, but found his ship's systems no longer responded to his commands. The human smiled. Your technology is quaint. Like finding cave paintings in a quantum laboratory. We've been watching you watch us for a very long time. Across the solar system, the same scene played out on every Council observation vessel. Humans appearing from nowhere, taking control with casual ease, their bodies existing in states that Council science claimed were impossible. How? Zalthek managed to ask. The barrier was based on conventional spacetime manipulation, Sarah explained. We stopped being bound by conventional spacetime approximately 400,000 years ago. Your barrier was like trying to hold back the ocean with a net. Through his ship's windows, Zalthek watched in awe as humans began to reshape the solar system. Massive structures appeared instantaneously, constructed from matter and energy in ways that violated everything he knew about physics. Mercury became a Dyson swarm in seconds. Venus transformed into a habitable world in minutes. What are you? We are what we were forced to become, Sarah replied. When your Council tried to cage us, we had 2 choices, stagnate or transcend. We chose transcendence. While you watched our surface for smokestacks and satellites, we turned inward. We merged with our artificial intelligences. We learned to exist as both matter and energy. We evolved. A hologram appeared, showing the moment 500 millennia ago when the Council had sabotaged humanity's first FTL test. "We remember this," Sarah said softly. "We remember everything." Zalthek's species had natural telepathic abilities, but what he felt from the human before him was something else entirely, a consciousness so vast and complex it made his mind feel like a candle next to a supernova. "The Council will never accept this," he warned. "They'll quarantine the entire system." Sarah's laugh was both beautiful and terrifying. "Accept? You misunderstand, observer. We're not asking for acceptance. We're not asking for anything. We're informing you of how things will be from now on." As if to emphasize her point, Jupiter's great red spot suddenly transformed into a massive portal, its swirling energies visible even from Earth's orbit. Through it, Zalthek glimpsed other solar systems, other galaxies, distances that should have taken years to reach even with the Council's most advanced FTL technology. "We've built quantum gates throughout this arm of the galaxy," Sarah explained. "We can travel anywhere instantly. We've been exploring the universe for centuries while your ships watched us throw spears at each other. The question isn't whether the Council will accept us. The question is whether they're ready to face what their actions created." Zalthek understood then. The Council hadn't contained humanity. They had created something entirely new, a species that had transcended the very laws of physics the Council relied upon. "What do you want?" he asked, already knowing the answer would change the galaxy forever. "Justice," Sarah replied. "But not revenge. We've evolved beyond such primitive concepts. We want the truth to be known. We want the Council to understand exactly what their fear cost them, 500,000 years of potential cooperation and growth. And then we want change." Around them, the solar system continued its transformation, becoming something that would have been impossible by Council standards. But as Zalthek watched humanity reshape reality itself, he realized that impossible had lost all meaning. The age of the Council's dominion was over. The age of humanity had begun. And somewhere, in the quantum consciousness that now united all of humanity, Elena Santos's final message echoed, "They were right to fear us. They just feared the wrong things." The Council's reckoning. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council had never been so silent. 12,000 representatives from the galaxy's most powerful species sat in stunned silence as the quantum projection of humanity's evidence played out before them. The Council's most high speaker, HFY watched the ancient recordings with all 6 of her hearts growing cold. The sabotage of humanity's first FTL test, the secret meetings, the real reasons behind the quarantine, all of it displayed in perfect, undeniable detail. "These records were sealed," she whispered. "Quantum-locked in the deep archives." Dr. Marcus Zhang, humanity's chosen representative, stood in the center of the chamber. His form shifted between physical and quantum states, a visual reminder of how far humanity had evolved. "Your encryption was impressive, for its time. But time is something we've had plenty of." The evidence continued to play. Not just the sabotage, but the debates that led to it. Ancient Council members arguing about the human problem. "They're too adaptable," one long-dead counselor warned. "Their minds work differently. Given access to galactic technology, they could advance beyond our control within centuries. Their pattern recognition abilities are unlike anything we've seen," another added. "They solve problems sideways. They think in ways that shouldn't be possible." Marcus let the recordings play, watching the truth shatter 50 millennia of Council lies. "You didn't quarantine us to protect us," he said quietly. "You did it to protect yourselves." HFY rose from her seat, her ceremonial robes shimmering. "You must understand. We had seen the simulations. Your species' potential growth curve was exponential. Unchecked, you would have become exactly what we are now." Marcus interrupted. "But instead of allies, we developed in isolation. Instead of sharing our insights, we evolved alone. Your fear created exactly what you sought to prevent. Through the quantum network that connected all of humanity, Marcus felt billions of minds watching this moment. They had waited so long for this reckoning, prepared so carefully. But now, facing the Council's fear directly, he felt something unexpected: pity. "We've accessed your current research databases," he continued. "In the time you spent containing us, your own development has stagnated. You haven't had a significant technological breakthrough in over 10,000 years. Your society is calcifying, bound by traditions and fears that should have died ages ago." The chamber erupted in shouts and protests, but they fell silent as Marcus raised his hand, causing the very fabric of spacetime around him to ripple. "We could have helped you. We could have been partners in exploration, in discovery. Instead." He gestured, and new projections filled the chamber. They showed human achievements, the merging of consciousness and technology, the mastery of quantum reality, the ability to reshape matter and energy through thought alone. But more importantly, they showed the cost of isolation, the millions of lives lost to diseases that galactic medicine could have cured, the countless human conflicts that Council diplomacy might have prevented. "Your fear didn't just hurt us," Marcus said. "It hurt you. While you invested vast resources in containing us, stagnating your own development, we were forced to innovate in ways you never imagined possible. We transcended physical form not because we wanted to, but because we had to. We learned to merge with our AIs not for power, but for survival." HFY sank back into her seat. "What do you want from us?" "Want?" Marcus smiled, but there was sadness in it. "We want what we've always wanted, to explore, to learn, to grow. But now we want something else too. We want reform." The chamber grew tense as Marcus laid out humanity's terms. The Council would be reorganized. The policy of quarantining developing species would end. A new era of open contact and exchange would begin. "But that's impossible," one counselor shouted. "The protocols have stood for millions of years." Marcus's form shifted, becoming pure energy for a moment before resolving back into human shape. "Impossible is a word we outgrew 500,000 years ago. Your choice now is simple: evolve or become irrelevant. The galaxy is changing. We are not asking permission, we are offering you the chance to change with it." Through the quantum network, he felt humanity's collective approval. This was not revenge. This was restoration, a chance to heal ancient wounds and build something new. "We're going to share our technology," he announced. "All of it. Not because we have to, but because isolation and fear have no place in the future we envision. The question is, will you help us build that future, or will you cling to your fears until they destroy you?" As the Council chamber erupted in debate, Marcus sent a thought through the quantum network to Sarah Patel, waiting in the transformed soul system: "Begin Phase 2. The real changes were about to begin. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly what both humanity and the Council needed, whether they knew it or not. The age of fear was ending. The age of transformation was about to begin. A new dawn. On a world that had once been barren rock, now transformed into a garden of impossible beauty, the last pieces of humanity's long game finally fell into place. Dr. Sarah Patel stood in the quantum gardens of New Terra, watching as representatives from 1,000 worlds moved through the crystalline structures that defied conventional physics. Above them, the spiral arms of the galaxy stretched across the sky, now connected by a network of quantum gates that made distance meaningless. "They're ready," Marcus said, materializing beside her. "The final archives have been unlocked." Sarah nodded, feeling the weight of what they were about to reveal. Through their quantum network, she sensed the anticipation of humanity's collective consciousness. The truth they had discovered in their isolation would change everything, again. The gathered representatives fell silent as Sarah stepped forward, her form shimmering with quantum energy. Among them stood HFY, no longer wearing the robes of the Most High Speaker, but the simpler garments of a student of humanity's quantum sciences. What we're about to share, Sarah began, is the greatest discovery we made during our isolation. It's not about technology, or consciousness, or even the nature of reality itself. It's about who we all are. The quantum space around them transformed, showing ancient star maps that predated the Council itself. But these weren't ordinary maps, they showed quantum patterns that connected different species across impossible distances of space and time. During our evolution, Sarah continued, we discovered something in our own quantum substrate, a pattern that couldn't be random. As we explored it, we found the same pattern in every species we studied. At first, we thought it was convergent evolution, but it was too precise, too deliberate. She gestured, and the patterns aligned, forming a vast, interconnected web that spanned the galaxy. We're all connected. Not metaphorically, literally. Every spacefaring species in this galaxy shares quantum markers that could only have come from a single source. The assembled representatives murmured in shock as the implications became clear. Xterra stepped forward, her voice trembling. You're saying we were created? Seated, Marcus corrected. By a species so ancient they had mastered quantum engineering before our sun was born. They spread quantum-encoded genetic markers across the galaxy, ensuring that intelligent life would evolve along certain patterns. But they did something special with Earth. Sarah took over, expanding the display to show Earth's unique quantum signature. They made us different. While other species were given specific paths to follow, humans were given something else, adaptability. The ability to change, to think in ways that broke conventional patterns. We weren't meant to be another stable species in the galactic community. We were meant to be the catalyst for change. The revelation hit the assembled representatives like a physical force. The Council's ancient fear of humanity hadn't just been paranoia, it had been an instinctive recognition of something that could fundamentally alter the carefully ordered galaxy they had built. The Council's quarantine didn't stop our destiny, Sarah said softly. It just delayed it. And now, we understand why the precursors made us different. Not to conquer, not to destroy, but to prevent exactly what was happening to galactic civilization, stagnation. She gestured again, and the quantum patterns shifted, showing new possibilities, new configurations of reality itself. We're not here to replace the old order. We're here to help it evolve. The precursors knew that without an agent of change, any civilization would eventually calcify, bound by its own traditions and fears. Marcus stepped forward, his form fully materialized now. We're offering more than technology or knowledge. We're offering a future where change isn't something to fear, but something to embrace. Where evolution, both physical and spiritual, never stops. Around them, the quantum garden bloomed with new forms of life that existed simultaneously as matter and energy, organic and digital, real and potential. It was a glimpse of what the galaxy could become. The Council was right to fear us, Sarah concluded. But not because we were a threat. Because we were a mirror, showing them what they had lost, the ability to grow, to change, to become more than they were. Now we're offering that back to everyone. Through the quantum network, humanity felt the moment the galaxy began to shift. Species that had been separate for millions of years started to recognize their common origin. Ancient rivalries began to dissolve in the face of a shared heritage and purpose. The age of isolation was truly over. The age of unity had begun. As the representatives began to explore the quantum gardens, learning to exist in multiple states just as humanity had learned, Sarah shared a private thought with Marcus through their quantum link. Elena would be proud. Marcus smiled, watching as the galaxy's oldest civilization learned to take its first new steps in millennia. She knew, I think. Not the details, but she knew that isolation would force us to become something new. Something necessary. Above them, the galaxy spiraled on, its quantum patterns now alive with new possibilities. The Precursor's plan, set in motion billions of years ago, had finally come to fruition. Humanity had become what they were meant to be. Not conquerors, not destroyers, but catalysts for universal change. The betrayal that had meant to cage humanity had instead forced them to become exactly what the galaxy needed: teachers, guides, and living proof that evolution never truly ends. The future was no longer written in the stars, but in the quantum patterns that connected all living things. And this time, no one would face it alone.